Stilicho screwed up the empire real good. So, for people that do not know, Stilicho was the most important military man of the Western Roman Empire after the Emperor Theodosius died. So, Emperor Theodosius divided his empire between his two sons, Arcadius and Honorius, and pretty much Stilicho was in charge of Honorius. So me because Honorius was pretty much a baby, he couldn't rule the Western Roman Empire. So Emperor Theodosius told Stilicho to take care of Honorius and to take care of the Western Roman Empire. The thing is that Stilicho, in the way that Stilicho screwed up the Western Roman Empire, is that he wanted to more power. So he wanted more power, he was more ambitious, and that is why he screwed up the Western Roman Empire. Stilicho wanted to not only have control over Honorius, he also wanted to have control over Arcadius. And that was a big problem because the people from the Eastern Roman Empire didn't want Stilicho having more power that he already had. Nonetheless, Stilicho tried to control the the Eastern Roman Empire, and that is the big problem. That was a big issue, and that's why Stilicho has more fault for the fall of the Western Roman Empire than anyone that I can come up with, especially more than, for example, Honorius. You have to remember that Honorius was pretty much a kid when Stilicho was alive, and he was pretty much the one who was controlling everything. So we should blame him. People really like Stilicho, and the reason that people like Stilicho is because he's a man. He is a man's man. That's what I mean. Is that he is a soldier. He represents everything that people want an emperor to be, and that's why people like him, because he's masculine. He was he was the most powerful military man of his era, and that is why people like him. There's no other reason why. And because he represents that masculinity, that's why people tend to forgive all of his other faults. So his biggest fault is that he tried to control the Eastern Roman Empire, and by trying to control the Eastern Roman Empire, pretty much he divided the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire even more, in a time where he shouldn't have done that. For example, many people blame Alaric for, well, many people like to blame the barbarian invaders for the fall of the Western Roman Empire. And specifically, people like to name the barbarian Alaric because he's a Gothic man. He's not a Roman, and that is why people like to point out Alaric, for example. But the thing is that Alaric was being used by the Eastern Roman Empire and by the Western Roman Empire to go against each other. When Theodosius died, Alaric was used by the Eastern Roman Empire to try to fight off the influence of Stilicho. There was a question in the Eastern Roman Empire, which is, what person can we hire against Stilicho? The Eastern Roman Empire settled on using Alaric as a counterweight for Stilicho, and that is why Stilicho tried to pretty much beat up Alaric 2 times. And that is why we have to put a lot of blame on Stilicho, because he was the one who was trying to control the Eastern Roman Empire while he was controlling the Western Roman Empire. And that tension between the East and the West, that's why ultimately led to pretty much more problems for the Western Roman Empire. For example, many people blame Alaric for the sack of Rome, but the thing is that Stilicho was using Alaric, and Stilicho was the one who was dealing with Alaric. He could have he could have finished Alaric, and that is something that maybe people do not know. Stilicho actually beat in battle Alaric, and Stilicho captured even the family of Alaric. He captured his sons and his wife, and then he could have eliminated Stilicho, but he didn't. Stilicho actually wanted to use Alaric to go against the Eastern Roman Empire, because there was a big probability there that there would be a civil war. Of course, Stilicho is killed before that happens, so the civil war never happened, but that's just because of chance. By chance, it didn't happen. And you might be wondering, well, that is not, I don't see how that is too problematic. The thing is that there was a point in which the most powerful person in the Eastern Roman Empire, he was, if I remember his name correctly, he was Rufinus. I think he was the one. He was pretty much the one who was controlling everything. He was basically killed by Roman troops that were sent by the Western Roman Empire. So you have that troops that were affiliated and friendly to Stilicho, they end up getting rid of the most powerful men in the Eastern Roman Empire. So you can clearly see that if you are in the Eastern Roman Empire, you will be hostile to Stilicho, because you have seen that Stilicho is willing to get rid of people that is against him or that are unfavorable for his goals. And that's why you have this friction and this instability during the period of time where Stilicho was in charge of the Western Roman Empire. Now, many people are going to disagree with me. Many people are going to blame the Goths. The reason Stilicho was using the Goths is because he was trying to give power to people who are not going to overthrow him. Put yourself in the shoes of Stilicho for a moment. If you are promoting people in higher ranks of the government, who are you going to promote? Are you going to promote someone who is likely to overthrow you, so meaning a Roman, or are you going to put someone who's not going to overthrow you because he's quote unquote a foreigner, therefore you could use him, so he's going to be dependent on you? Well, you're going to promote that person. You're going to promote a Goth. Of course, later on, we know that that doesn't go very well, but that's the biggest fault of Stilicho. Stilicho is trying to play this game where he's putting people that are not going to overthrow him into positions of power, and he's neglecting people who are likely to overthrow him. But at the end, it didn't matter, because those people ended up overthrowing him. So if you know about anything about the Romans who ended up killing Stilicho were Romans who were unhappy that he was using foreign legions, precisely because the Romans, they wanted to be promoted to higher offices, and that's why they pretty much got rid of Stilicho. At the end, all of these problems, all of this mess had an impact on the Western Roman Empire more than they had an impact of the Eastern Roman Empire. And that's why Stilicho has a lot of blame for the fall of the Western Roman Empire. And that's why I extremely dislike Stilicho. Even though people like Stilicho, but the reason people like Stilicho is because he's a military man, he's a soldier, he's someone who represents masculinity, even though his decisions contributed more to the fall of the Western Roman Empire than anybody's, than anyone else's decisions, especially of Honorius, um, because many people like to think about Honorius as a puppet, as useless, but for most of his reign, at least for up to the sack of Rome, pretty much Honorius was a kid. He was a, so what is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to dress like a soldier and go up against Goths? For example, the when the Goths invade Italy, Honorius was a kid. He was, I think that in the 400s, when the Goths invade Italy, Honorius was 11 years old. So pretty much the person who was in control was Stilicho. The person who was screwing up the Roman Empire was Stilicho. The people, the person we should blame is Stilicho. And that's why I dislike Stilicho a lot.